Awesome. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And before I kind of give our formal welcome, happy welcoming week. We're really, really grateful to have your time and attention if you're watching this on playback. We hope that you participated in some awesome welcoming week activities, and that you're maybe even planning what you're doing for next year already, which I've talked to a couple close colleagues and we're already planning for 2024. But yeah, super grateful to have you all on the line today. We have some really awesome guests that are going to share about the awesome work that they're doing at their organizations and a little bit more about Welcoming Week. But my name's Maddie. I work at the Minneapolis Regional Chamber, and we're presenting today our third installment of the Workforce Webinar Series, specifically focusing on celebrating Welcoming Week 2023, which began on Friday of last week and goes through the end of this week. We're going to talk a little bit more about what exactly is Welcoming Week, what's Welcoming America, and what do we need to know about it and why? And what's our community doing to celebrate this awesome event? I think a really fun place for us to start, other than me kind of rambling on and on about what our workforce webinar series is I'll have our panelists introduce themselves, but just a heads up to our folks that are on the call attending. If you do have questions, there should be a Q&A function that you can utilize. I have some colleagues on the call that are going to help us to manage the chat. I already see that we're getting some action in the chat as well. So thanks for that. And yeah, our workforce webinar series is we've had a really exciting and robust legislative session that ended couple months ago, and there's been a lot for employers to be thinking about. So we really wanted to provide an evergreen resource for our business members and community members alike to learn more about how these issues are affecting businesses and how they can engage with us and other organizations in the community that are doing work on different issues, from the Clean Slate Act to Driver's License for All, which is a little bit of a preview of some topics that we're going to be covering in the coming months. Last month, we spent some time thinking about how businesses can engage with workforce development focused nonprofits to find future talent. And then we had our first webinar back in July, focusing on a myriad of topics that have come out of the recent legislative session that affect businesses, like the legalization of marijuana, to new legislation around NDAs, all that good stuff. So once again, it's our workforce webinar series. We're going to be diving into lots of different topics. So if you have ideas, please feel free to reach out to me directly or anybody on our policy team. So that would be Grace Waltz or Hannah Zen. Awesome. Well, that's me. That's why we're here. I would love to have all of our panelists to, introduce themselves and say a little bit about who they are, the organization that they're here representing, and kind of what brought them to the conversation. So I think, Michelle, if it's all right, I might toss it to you first.
Sure. Thank you so much, Maddie. And thank you to the Chamber for inviting me to be part of this conversation today. My name is Michelle Rivero. I'm the Director of the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs for the City of Minneapolis. This is an office that works to ensure that residents of the city who are born outside of the United States are able to access lives of safety, dignity, and opportunity here in our city. That includes working on developing immigrant and refugee inclusion policies, initiatives, and strategies, including work that we've done together with the Minneapolis Regional Chamber, the Journey to Belonging report that came out last year. And I'm very grateful to be here. And I will turn it back to you, Maddie. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Michelle. Abdi Wahab, since you're unmuted, can I have you introduce yourself and the organization and what brought you to the conversation today?
Yes, thank you, Mary. Hi, everyone. My name is Abdi Wahab Mohammed. I serve as the Assistant Commissioner for Immigrant and Refugee Affairs at the State Department of Employment and Economic Development. The legislative session has been successful, and we had the honor of establishing this office through legislation. That means we had this office for about 3 years, and we were doing some of the programming that we were doing, but now we have it established in state law, and we will have an office that can coordinate the state agencies, work with the ethnic councils, to make sure that immigrants and refugees that come to the country face, tackle those barriers and access state resources as they should. There's so much information, there's so much opportunities, so much resources from the state that we need to share with the, in terms of workforce or economic development, with employers, with employees, those we will match employers and employees, those kind of services. And we're happy to be here today to join the conversation. Thank you. Back to you, Maddie.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Abdi Wahab. We're so glad you're with us. Kathleen, I'm going to have you introduce yourself now.
Thank you, Maddie, so much. I'm Kathleen Matzenbecker. I am the U.S. Partnership Lead here at Alight. We are a nonprofit organization headquartered in Northeast Minneapolis. You might know us by our former name, the American Refugee Committee, but I think my participation in this panel today, when I look at my colleagues, you've got city government, you've got state government, and then you have the nonprofit voice. Together, we are so blessed to live in a community where there is smooth and good and frequent collaboration and communication between these different offices. It helps build a network that can help elevate newcomers and refugees. So I'm honored to be here today. Thank you.
Great. Awesome. I'm going to make sure that we can see all of your faces as we begin our conversation. Yeah, I'm super passionate about Welcoming Week. It's something I've taken with me kind of from a handful of different opportunities that I've had in my life. And so I was, super psyched when people were like, we should do September's Welcoming Week. Let's do a webinar about it. And yeah, it's just a tiny bit of a preview. And then I'm going to have Michelle talk about what the city of Minneapolis has been doing for this program. It's a national program run by an organization called Welcoming America. It's a week to 10-day period every year around the same time. The dates switch a little bit, where welcoming immigrants and refugees into your community through events, conversations, dinners, picnics, community projects are highly incentivized, and Welcoming America provides a lot of support for helping small communities, maybe a small unincorporated township up to major metropolitan areas engage in this work. So it's a tiny bit about what it is to participate. But Michelle, I'd love to throw it over to you to talk a little bit about what the city's been doing to engage in this programming.
Sure, I'd be happy to. And just as a preface for people who may not be familiar with Welcoming America or Welcoming Week, the Welcoming Week initiative actually started 12 years ago. And from its inception to today, now there are events that are taking place all over the world around this time frame, recognizing that we are a stronger society when we work together, when we learn about each other, when we learn from each other. And so the city of Minneapolis has been really grateful for the opportunity to host Welcoming Week events every year since 2017. In the United States, Welcoming Week always falls around Citizenship Day or Constitution Day, which is September 17th. So it really provides us with an opportunity to reflect on what it means to be a US citizen and the importance of also encouraging people to apply for naturalization. So for the last several years, and this year included, the city of Minneapolis has hosted citizenship and immigration fairs. And this year we celebrated our 1-year anniversary of a citizenship and immigration campaign to share information about how to obtain US citizenship, as there are over 10,000 residents of the city of Minneapolis who have not yet taken that step from obtaining a green card to obtaining US citizenship. And this last event that we had actually this past Saturday had individuals from all over the world speaking a variety of languages, including Swahili and Turkish and Hmong, Spanish, Somali, and more. So we're really thrilled at the turnout and impact of that event. And another event that I wanted to share is our Twin Cities Immigration Forum, which is actually a virtual event happening tomorrow. It is a space where we offer community the opportunity to share information about what they are hosting, what events are taking place. And also this year, we're thrilled to have a representative from Welcoming America who will be joining us and sharing more information about Welcoming Week and Welcoming America. And we'll also have guests from the YMCA who have focused on welcoming in the state of Minnesota for 160 years. So they know a little bit about fostering inclusive communities. So hope people can join us, and you can see events on our OIRA webpage, OIRA Minneapolis. Thank you.
Awesome. That's so great. Yeah. Since 2017. So you guys got a couple years under your belt there. So excited to see that you guys are continuing that good work. So thanks for that overview. I think we're going to kind of popcorn around with some different questions. And then I have a couple questions that are for everybody. And then we're going to have the opportunity to hear from Kathleen a little bit more pointedly about Alight. But I wanted to throw it over to Abdi Wahab next about obviously just like the huge success of the Office of New Americans. And if you could just say a little bit more, maybe in detail, about what the function of the new office will be, and maybe just like how things are going. Curious.
Thank you. So the work has been going on, and the office has done a lot of work with mostly connecting, mostly tackling this barriers that the immigrant and refugees face. So Anissa, my predecessor, has done a lot on language access, has done some character orientation with some of the employers, has traveled across the state to talk about retention of immigrant and refugee communities into the workforce. And we work with other departments and interagency councils across the state to make sure that the communities are served. So, but the challenge was always having this office take the lead on this of the work that we do, while not having it permanently established. So we were lucky enough to have the governor propose the establishment of this office with a baseline funding, and that went through last legislative session. And so now we have the opportunity to expand this office, to hire one more person, and to kind of focus ourselves and lead an interagency council and across state agencies to make sure we have a collaborative effort as a state to make sure that the resources that the state has gets out to anyone who needs. That means the community organizations, the employers, the cities and municipalities, up to the folks that want to access these services. So that's our main goal. What we have done so far was focus on some of the work that is tasked to us by this enabling statute. So, for example, the office has to serve as the point of contact for immigrant and refugees accessing resources within the state, and we are supposed to have a statewide strategy and programming, to promote those inclusion efforts for the immigrant and refugee communities. We're supposed to connect employers and job seekers to address the labor shortage. And then some of the other tasks that the office has been given is to work with the ethnic councils and stakeholders to make sure that appropriate research is there, appropriate data is there to reflect where are we making the impact. And we also have to have language access initiatives, credentialing work. For example, there are so many people who come to the country and cannot fully tap on the skills that they have. So we're supposed to work with the agencies or the professional licensing boards to make sure how can we be inclusive so we can tap into the skills, because we're losing so many dollars for not tapping into the skills that these folks bring. Some of the other work that we'll do is support any efforts to create offices of New Americans within the state, and we have worked a lot with our dear friends Michelle and Edmundo, who already have this office well before we started in the city of St. Paul and Minneapolis, and we're happy to continue that effort as well. In terms of workforce, what we have done so far was to work with really needs workforce department and the governance workforce boards, the local workforce development boards. We have workforce strategy consultants at DEED to help employers answer questions that employers have. We hosted job fairs and hiring events for new Americans, and there were translation and interpretation provided on site. And there was many other outreach events that we have done so far. So those are some of the work that this office can do to address the needs for workforce and economic development in the state. That's why we're within DEED, and we will primarily focus on under that umbrella of workforce and economic development.
Awesome. That's so great. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I know there's a lot of moving pieces and just kind of getting some clarity as to where you guys are at and your priorities, what's been done, how you're collaborating, like you said, the city of St. Paul and Minneapolis so closely since they've had those departments is just, yeah, really helpful overview. So thank you. Yeah, I'm so glad that you were kind of towards the end of your speech there that about workforce development, because I do think, you know, we started the entire webinar with this is our workforce webinar series. You know, obviously the timing is ripe with welcoming week happening, but like, what is the true connection point? And those are some of the questions that we're going to get into in this next section is like, why should employers be thinking about welcoming week? And, you know, kind of all baked in with welcoming week, like why specifically immigrant and refugee communities. So yeah, I would love to maybe throw it back to you, Abdiwahab or Michelle, about if there are any tips, tricks, grant opportunities, success stories with employers. And then I know that Kathleen's going to have a very specific pitch to why and how employers can get involved with these specific populations.
I can kick it off and then turn it over to Assistant Commissioner Mohammed if that works. So I'll share that the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs has become much more engaged in the workforce space, beginning with the Journey to Belonging report, which is a partnership report prepared in conjunction with the Minneapolis Regional Chamber, City of St. Paul, and the St. Paul Chamber, and an advisory committee composed of a number of individuals working in the immigrant and refugee space, very multi-jurisdictional panel of folks. The office also has been collaborating in more detail or additionally with the Employment and Training Division of the Community Planning and Economic Development Department. And I guess one tip that I might share, a couple of tips. One is to read the Journey to Belonging report, which is full of excellent strategies and ideas and just general food for thought for any employer. There is a economic and workforce development component in that report that may be a useful starting point for folks. And then another is an example of an event that took place in partnership with a career force location and employment and training that was a driver's license for all, immigration orientation and job fair that took place in July that attracted 500 people. And it was just really such an incredible turnout. And there was some advanced planning beforehand to sort of identify what are the things that are really important for people, what are draws for people, and how can you, in kind of an interdisciplinary way, create an event that addresses needs and desires of our immigrant and refugee resident community. And so, you know, just the turnout of the event was really an attestation of how successful it was. So I'd really invite employers that are interested in opening the door or learning more to feel free to reach out to the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs, the Employment and Training Division of the city, and then also, as I indicated, to take a look at the Journey to Belonging report, which really has some great ideas and food for thought that may spark some ideas within different employers.
Awesome. Yeah, and I know we linked that in the chat, so thanks, Grace, for linking that report, and highly encourage you to check that out or reach out directly. Definitely, those are great tips. Abdiwahab, is there any, I mean, opportunities through DEED, grant opportunities? Kind of where's your head at with like a couple asks for employers maybe?
Sure. So DEED gets its funding from the state, and there's also some federal dollars that come to us. And we have had a lot of money come through the from this past session. And this, with the labor shortage that we're experiencing, there were some policies that were set in the One Minnesota budget to address that. And so I'm looking at some of those grants, and there are some that have already come out and some have not. For example, the Targeted Populations Workforce Program provides up to $50 million in this fiscal year, and about 2.5 in the next year, to kind of focus on some of the communities that have been seen as underserved and have not been getting a lot of their workforce programs that are receiving. So when this comes out, community organizations, DEED partners will receive that money, and they will start getting those communities, targeted communities, into the workforce programs, and eventually that will lead to an increase in their labor workforce participation. We've seen the trends from 2011 to 2021, that 10-year, that over half of the state's labor force was led by immigrants. And there's been the labor workforce participation is about 77% of the communities that get here. They get to work immediately. So this interventions just made it more worth to invest in targeted communities. So that's one of the grants that I think employers will eventually find it helpful, even though they might not be the ones training them, but working with community organizations for placements. If they want to work with communities to partner with community organizations to hire those state graduates, that will be one of the success stories from this grant. Other programs that I know are coming out is the Drive for 5 Workforce Fund. The governor's budget identifies 5 major industries that have the most potential of growth, and they're more critical to the workforce, and of course with the high growth jobs and family sustaining wages. And these industries are, technology, caring professions, education, manufacturing, and trades. And so this will be competitive grants, trainings, support services. That's what we're hoping to get. And we will want our partners to work with employers, with education institutions, colleges, those who do trade associations, sector partnerships, and to engage with business in job matching after they graduate from this program. So that is something to look forward to, and I think it will come out around November. For community organizations, DEED partners, those who trade associations, business associations, they can always look at how they can tap into those dollars. It's about $20 million for the fiscal year 2024-25. And that is for those 5 major occupational categories that I've mentioned. Some of the other investments that the state is doing in terms of workforce, of course, the Office of New Americans, to have an office that will be there to support everyone, whether it's the employers, whether it's the associations, whether it's the folks that want employment, to have that office and someone who you can talk to is something that we have seen as an important, and that's why we have established this office. When we look at the youth, for example, there's youth workforce development dollars that is coming to our partners as well. And then we have some of the other programs that are meant to support those folks who are not able to join the workforce. For example, we have a new office for childcare, for example. So there's that investment on childcare, and hopefully we will have some investment on transportation, because that's one of the major issues that leads some of the workers not to go to jobs that are outside the metro. For example, if they lived in the metro, so we'll have those programs in the coming years. But for now, we have identified childcare as some of the barriers to employment, and we have an office that will be established. We'll have job opportunities for someone to lead that office and kind of write the strategy for that. And then we've seen as workforce digital transformation. There's about $10 million investment to modernize support services for the workforce. We'll have that grant come out, and it's going to be an RFP, a competitive process. So we call on everyone who's involved in workforce development and partnerships between community organizations and employers to address these shortages. Back to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And yeah, I think your comments are a testament to really just how robust the opportunities are if you're an employer that's really thinking about not only how to engage your community, and maybe this is part of your corporate social responsibility wing or just part of your ethos as an organization, but really getting tactical about that. I believe Abdiwahab, I think you said it was like 77% of immigrants and refugees when they get here are working within the first year that they're here. I mean, this is a very, it's an incredible opportunity to capitalize on lovely talent that is ready and willing to come and work for your organization and in a variety of different fields. So just kind of wanted to underscore that if it hadn't been hinted to or alluded to already. But I think Kathleen, if you're interested in and ready to get started with a little bit more about Alight, I think that this would be a great time to do that. And then we'll maybe hit kind of a last thoughts at the end and then continue on to our afternoon. But I'll turn it over to you to tell us about Alight.
Sure. And again, as I hear my colleagues speak, first of all, Assistant Commissioner, you have a tough job and you are the right person to lead this right now. Again, when I think about not only the networks we have here in the Twin Cities region, but statewide. And I was reflecting back, how did I even hear about Welcoming Week? You know, for all of us who are in this work every day, we hear the word welcome a lot. That could be confusing to outsiders. You've got Welcome Corps, which is a new federal program that is getting private sponsors for new refugees. But Welcoming Week, this initiative through Welcoming America, I was first informed about it by a statewide partner through the West Central Initiative. So again, I think there is a uniqueness here in our state of regional cooperation on being not only a traditional welcomer to newcomers, but now with the challenges that we've had in fulfilling workforce, even more cooperation is needed more than ever. I will just say at the outset here, Alight, we're not a resettlement agency, but it was through the unique work after the Afghan resettlement that we found our niche where we can fill in on the gaps. We are a convener. We helped on furnishing homes for new Afghans. Of course, that work just grew, the Afghans and then Ukrainians, and now again, Welcome Corps. But more than ever, we need the private sector, and we thank the regional chamber for convening folks in that space. Maybe we'll throw up, I only have a few slides, but if we could throw that up, I could just walk through a bit about what this initiative that Alight is doing. So again, I think in this particular moment in time, we require the energies of the private sector to advance the needs of newcomers in Minnesota. This is a direct outgrowth of the We Belong Here, the We Belong MSP partnership, again, led by folks in St. Paul and in Minneapolis. Alight internally is calling this the Minnesota Corporate Consortium, and we can go to the next slide. As I stated at the beginning, why Alight? And who are we? So as I referenced before, we renamed ourselves from the American Refugee Committee in 2019, really to reflect the optimism, the abundance in our work in championing refugees, economic migrants, and trafficked persons. We started out here in Minneapolis over 40 years ago. It grew to over 20 countries. But the main takeaway is that we build a meaningful life for and with the displaced, a life that's filled with joy, connection, and purpose. And like I said, the new U.S. program, serving not only newcomers, but those communities, everyone that we just talked about, potential employers, neighbors, anyone who embraces newcomers to unleash the abundance that both have to give. Next slide. So what do? We co-create, and I put it in bold here, that Alight is very well known for our human-centered design. Our CEO, Jocelyn Wyatt, who's been at the helm now about 1.5 years, came from a design firm called IDEO that puts human-centered design at the very core of our work. So we're using that to co-create with newcomers to understand what do they need beyond just the essential services. And we're building this consortium of global business leaders who want to lean in and learn more. And again, we're looking to partner for anchor companies globally minded and dedicated to creating diverse, globally conscious workplaces. I'm just going to say at one point, Abdi Wahab mentioned how rich newcomers are for your own team, but your own team benefits so much when you hire a newcomer. It expands your own globalness for your company. And I want to just keep that in mind as we continue. Next slide. As I referenced before, it's not just about essential services, housing, food, shelter. These are all critical, but Alight's trying to take that and deepen it. And we're talking about the essential human experiences. So you'll see here, we put together these 6 categories that really encompass the whole human experience. This was developed in conjunction with our clients in over 20 countries. But I'll just say that look over these 6 categories. When you are lacking in even one of these, you can feel a little bit lopsided. And, you know, we all went through the pandemic. We all experienced the isolation and challenges of COVID. But when you're lacking in one of these categories, you can almost feel like a mini COVID. If you are not taking care of your body, mind, and spirit, you almost feel handicapped to creating your own full potential. Newcomers' experiences times 10. They might not feel safe in their new experience. It could be the new language, the new country, that piece of home and house, the pursuit of education for the next generation. And the issue that's so important to the assistant commissioner and to Michelle is that dignity of work and that financial security. Michelle has helped educate me on when people don't get into legitimate work, people are so eager to work and they can become susceptible to things that could be dangerous for them. And we don't want to see that happen for our newcomers. But most of all, that experience of the loving human connection is something that Alight is trying to wrap our arms around. On the next slide, you'll just see here, again, I kind of talked through this, the journey that got us here now. So we'll just jump to the next slide because I want to tell you about the folks that are co-chairing this for me. So here you will see from my board, Owen Allende from Starkey Hearing himself. Just 6 years living here in Minnesota. He is originally from Africa. And then Brenda Casilius, you might know her from her state government days. She's an education expert, but now is the CEO of Fresh Energy, working with energy companies who understand the press of climate migration and what might force people to flee their homes and again, perhaps wind up here in Minnesota. So they're my co-chairs. They are helping me lasso other individuals and companies under this rubric of neighbors for newcomers. Next slide. We'll do 3 things, and this is my last that I'll just say if companies want to become engaged. We want to deepen engagement to activate employees in new and meaningful ways around newcomers. We want Minnesota to be known as a place that has a strong corporate community that is welcoming to others. And lastly, catalyzing networks. We discussed many times on this call the type of strong networks that we have. I'll just say that when it comes to discussing workforce, when it comes to expanding learning, we grow stronger together. So I think the last slide just has my email. The Regional Chamber has been a partner on this. Folks can engage at different levels, and I'm happy to discuss that more offline, but thanks for the opportunity to discuss it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kathleen. That was great. And yeah, just really appreciate especially this, the essential human experiences and you kind of talking us through that and how you guys have built that in co-design. It's really exciting. So thanks for that. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see you all again. Well, we've covered a lot of ground and there's a lot of really great opportunities. And I think that that is the beauty of Welcoming Week is it is an intentional space every year, multiple days, different days of the week, different times of the day for us to get together and talk about how are we engaging our immigrants and refugee community members? What does it look like? How have we made big strides? Where can we improve? So we just really appreciate your attention and your interest in this topic. And we hope that Welcoming Week is a catalyst and not a one-off moment in time. We really want to continue to see, like Kathleen said, like these sort of relationships catalyze themselves and really grow into a movement of, can we make the city of Minneapolis and the Twin Cities like the most welcoming place possible in the country? Can I even say that, for immigrants and refugees? And we've made some really great progress. And I think hopefully with the work of this group and employers that are on the call, that we can continue to work towards making that happen. I want to open it up. I know Kathleen kind of mic dropped us, which was really great, about a way for employers to really engage with our work. But Michelle or Assistant Commissioner, if there's anything else that you're interested in putting into this space, I'm going to allow that now if you're interested. So.
I just unmuted. I was like, who's going to unmute first? So I'll start. I find that when people learn about the spaces and places to connect, they really want to learn more and become more involved and become more engaged. And I find that so exciting. And so I'll just share, I mentioned at the top of the hour, the Twin Cities Immigration Forum, which is a virtual, very accessible space to learn about immigration-related developments. We share information about federal policy developments that impact immigrant and refugee residents, as well as local things happening at the state and the municipal level, and always have time for people to share their updates, their events, things that are going on. We've been recording these for a number of months. So if you visit the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs webpage, you'll see recordings from previous months. If you're available to join, we would welcome anyone to participate and listen in. And if you have an opportunity to share that you'd like to share in that space, we invite people to reach out to us. It's a co-hosted space between the City of Minneapolis, Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs, and the City of St. Paul Immigrant and Refugee Program, with my counterpart, Edmundo Lijo, in St. Paul. So please feel free to check it out, to reach out if you have more questions. And I can assure you that once you start watching, you're probably going to be hooked because there's so much, as a wealth of information that's shared every month in that space.
That's great.
And Mary, I will add, we shared the link to the opportunities at Deed, and please make sure you sign up so that you receive some of these alerts when there is new programs that come up. And there is also 3 links up there for profits, for nonprofits, for businesses. You can follow those links, and that will take you to all the other Deed programs that you can ask and work with. And should you have any questions or you want to sit down with someone, there's that workforce strategy consultants that we can connect you with that are divided into regions, so they have a wealth of information and experience within the region that you are located at. So I'll advise people to sign up and reach out if they have any questions.
Awesome. Fabulous. Well, thank you everybody for your time, and please check out those links and reach out. And hopefully, if you're planning the rest of your week, that you consider joining in on another Welcoming Week event. Otherwise, I think we'll sign off for today, but we appreciate your time and we hope you have a great rest of the day. So thank you. Thanks, panelists. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Happy
Yeah.
Welcoming Week.
Bye.